The Brooklyn Nets are still a few years away from competing for a championship. But Sean Marks has done a great job molding his roster, and now 2 more players join the club. We'll recap both picks, take a look at the potential Nets Summer League rookie free agents, and more, and a little bit ahead at free agency as Nets Game on the Prime Sports Radio Network starts now. All right, we are back talking Brooklyn Nets basketball on Prime Sports Network. Draft has been over for a few days. Nobody's listening live on a Saturday at 3:30, but that's okay. So we're going to get this out there. Tweet it out. Follow us on Twitter at PrimeSN, and that's the best way of knowing when all these shows are available on demand. We'll send it out on Monday when everybody is actively on social media. Not as much, of course, the weekends, but good time for me and Jamal to catch up on things, including the Nets and their draft, as I welcome in Jamal Murphy to the show. So, Jamal, it wasn't Mo Wagner, but you know what? I get the feeling that when you hear Sean Marks talk about the fact that they were close to a trade-up, I kind of get the feeling that might have been Mo.
Yeah, I mean, that could be a possibility. I was with you. I thought that Wagner was a guy that would have fit the system perfectly, that they would have looked to try to acquire. But obviously, the Lakers came in there and swooped in and got him, and the Nets had to turn their attention elsewhere.
Yeah, and if that's the case, interesting, since the Nets, of course, made the deal with the Lakers last year, and Lakers made out with their draft pick in the deal. So maybe they'll make out with Mo in this one. Not that it'll help the Nets, but as far as the Nets are concerned, they get a couple of Euro players. But I'm glad I don't have to say Euro stash players. That's never a good thing for a basketball fan when you're look, second round is one thing, but it looks like both picks could be with the Nets, and it looks like the first guy. And Marks has said you can call him Jazin, I believe is how he's I think that's how you pronounce his name. And the other guy is Rhodey. So Jazin and Rhodey. Okay. That's how we're going to call these guys. Right. So apparently, and it's Musa, Jazin Musa. So Jazin apparently will make the team. That's going to happen. It'd be very disappointing if he didn't. But Rhodey is a guy that will probably end up with a 2-way contract. I think that's how they'll handle both of these guys. You agree?
Well, definitely, like you said, Rhodey, I could see that. He's a little more of a project. He's been injury prone. He's had some issues, so they'll probably just try to get him healthy and then get his weight up. But there've been positive things said about him. He looks like a real player, versatile, can play the 2, 3, and the 4. Has an attitude. He's from Latvia, just like Kristaps, and he said he can't wait to beat Porzingis' ass. So that should be interesting.
Okay, good to have that confidence. But then as far as Jazin is concerned, we're going to get an opportunity to look at him this year. And like Rhodey, he can play. Apparently, they have a plan to play him anywhere from the shooting guard to the power forward spot. Both guys at 6'9".
Right, yeah. So Musa's he's a legit 6'9", he's a little lighter than Rhodey, but he's considered one of the best scorers of his generation in Europe, if not the best. So, I mean, that's saying a lot.
Sure.
You can't say much more than that. I mean, obviously the kid can play. He's strong personality. Also, he was talking a little junk about Jokic, somebody who knows from playing internationally. He said that Jokic from Denver doesn't have a muscle in his body. Ooh. So that they're both out there talking trash to the rest of the league. So Good. Obviously they have confidence. I mean, he's known for that on the court too. He's known for having, shall I say, onions, taking big shots, not afraid of the moment. Pretty good athlete, high basketball IQ, natural scorer, as we just said. So, and the thing with taking the Nets and taking these international guys. I mean, the Nets are always looking for, a diamond in the rough,
Yeah.
especially that late in the first round.
Yes.
And you got to think that the guys that are probably most underrated or slept on at that point are going to be international guys. So
Yes.
I'll give them the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah, we're going to give Sean Marks the benefit of the doubt for scouting these guys, and then we're going to give Kenny Atkinson the benefit of the doubt for coaching up these guys. So it's worked so far with plenty of players that they've added in, a lot of underachievers that have done a good job, or players that were considered malcontents like D'Angelo Russell, who has been nothing but a model player for the Nets, even though he needs to stay healthy. But still, fact is, everything is gone well for the last couple of years with that Marks-Atkinson tandem, and we'll see how it plays out with these two young players. Most of all, they can shoot, especially apparently. I mean, Musa, like you said, he's got an outside shot, and the ability to get these guys to learn how to play enough defense, be able to handle the ball at 6'9", and shoot the ball all in one. That's that kind of hidden talent you're talking about, that if they are brought along slowly, which they will be, and not too slowly, because the Nets in the stage of where they are right now in their rebuild are going to give these kids a shot to play a little bit in the NBA, which if they were on other teams, they'd be riding the pine. Then okay, we'll see. It's a gamble, but that's where we are right now when we're picking 29 and 40.
Right, and both these guys are really young guys. Musa's he's 19.
Yep.
Rhodey is 20.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said, 6'9", long guys who are versatile, who can shoot. I mean, that's what the league is becoming now. I mean, whether it's international guys or homebred guys. I mean, that's what you're looking for. You're looking for those tall guys who can do everything. And the Nets found a couple, from far away.
All right, now, before the draft, Marks made another deal, and it was good that he made this deal, because it was good for two reasons. One, you get rid of this Mozgov character, and two, now, instead of waiting 2 years for the cap relief, they only have to wait 1 year. So now after this season coming up, in 2019, the offseason free agency, the Nets are going to have 2 max contract opportunities as of now, and that could make things interesting. So, I got to tell you, I'm going to be very surprised if by next offseason, the latest, we don't start landing some big players.
Yeah, I mean, surprised or disappointed. It's gonna, one of the two, because it's time.
Yeah, both.
Like you mentioned in the open, it's gonna be, we're still at a situation we've been saying for the past couple of years. We're a couple of years away from contention, and they're the Nets, and we understand they're rebuilding, but they are in New York, they are in Brooklyn, so there's not gonna be so much patience much longer for them.
Mm-hmm.
So they're going to, I mean, like you said, so it was a perfect deal. I mean, he basically fleeced, Charlotte in that situation, being able to open up all the cap space this coming year and maybe get 2 guys. And they seem pretty confident that they can attract the type of free agent that they would need in that space.
Don't you think it's? I mean, I still find it weird. I understand the whole Nick versus net thing. But I just, it just surprises me when I hear watch these national shows and the way that they talk about Brooklyn and like after the trade and it frees up max space. But really, do you think anybody's going to want to go to Brooklyn? Would anybody want to go there? It's like, and I don't understand that. So wait a second. Here's an organization that everybody league-wide is talking about how great they are with the players and how great everybody, enjoys playing there and how everybody seems to get better when they're coached up there. And they play in freaking New York. Okay, it's New York. I don't care. It may not be the Garden, but it's New York. And so who wouldn't want to go to an organization like that? I don't understand. And when they're saying, and then I also think it's kind of funny when they start going, yeah, but if they're going to go somewhere, they're going to go to the Knicks, not the Nets. Well, who on earth would want to play for the Knicks organization when you could play for the Nets?
Right. No, I hear you. And a lot of it is, it just comes down to what their record is. What do they look like on the court? And when you're dealing with an average fan, who's just, looking at everything, from an overhead view. They just see the record and that they haven't won much in 2 games, and they don't even understand the type of development that's going on. As far as Brooklyn is concerned, being in New York, I mean, the league knows. All the guys who are making big bucks, they know what it would mean to be playing in New York, whether it's Brooklyn or Manhattan.
Yes.
So that's not an issue. They're gonna draw some, but that it does go back to them having to show some kind of progress
Sure.
in the standings this year.
Yeah. Yes.
Which will be more of a draw for free agents in the summer.
See, look, if you took ownership, Marks and Atkinson, flipped it to the Knicks, and the Nets, had their coach, their GM, their owner, then sure, everybody would want to go play for the Knicks. It'd be easy.
That's true.
But
that's true.
But that's the whole difference. That's why there's who in their right mind, if they were deciding on the Knicks or the Nets and and everything was equal, would go, oh yeah, I want to play for that Knick organization that is just. I mean, seriously, even at this point, it's just it's one of the worst. I mean, I think they're lucky that you've got Memphis and Sacramento, because other than that, the Knicks would be a laughingstock compared to those, but they've got other organizations that are worse and in worse markets. But the Nets are in much better shape organizationally than the Knicks right now. And I think that's why I'm going to be very excited about the possibilities of bringing in some star players. And I don't know who. I have no idea who it's going to be. I'm happy that Kawhi Leonard didn't get traded before the draft, because that was possible. The whole Clipper thing with their 2 picks in the first round. That didn't happen. A whole thing about the Lakers, I'm not sure that's going to happen, because I don't see the Lakers making the trade. So then the question is, are the Lakers going to be patient enough with LeBron and George if they decide to somehow go to the Lakers, and then let's say they don't have a whole lot of cap space left and Kawhi's a free agent, he stays with San Antonio for another year. Now all of a sudden Kawhi, well, maybe he goes to the Clippers. Okay, that's possible. I can definitely see that. I get that. But you'd have to think that if he's not going to go to L.A., then he would definitely consider going to a Sean Marks team, wouldn't he?
Yeah, I would think so. Plus, from everything you hear, his uncle is his advisor, and his uncle wants him to be in a big market. And as you mentioned, multiple times, this is New York City. It's Brooklyn, New York. That's a huge market, and I think it is going to take that one guy
that surprises everybody. Yes, surprises everybody.
Surprises everyone, comes to Brooklyn, and then changes the direction of the franchise to where everyone can see it, to where they're winning at least 40 games, and then a buzz starts. And that's when it'll become a no-brainer that, hey, this is a real franchise here. Not, it's not only a real one, it could be a top, 7 franchise in the league if you're winning 40, 50 games because of where you are. And the thing with the Knicks, the difference, of course, is the building they play in.
Sure.
Madison Square Garden, the most famous arena.
Yep.
So people look at that, they want to play in that arena. It's basically a Broadway play every night type of situation. So, I mean, that's the difference. But Brooklyn can create a similar buzz, but they have to get players in there.
Yeah, and look, it's also the East, which is an advantage. So especially if LeBron leaves and goes to the Lakers, I mean, come on. There's got to be somebody out there that's going to go, I have to go to the East. I have to take advantage of the fact that nobody's there. And if it's I don't know which other superstar players. I mean, who are we talking about? We're talking about Kawhi and maybe Klay Thompson, because that's it, right? I mean, everybody else is going to get signed up. What other potential superstars could be available next year that would be somebody that the Nets could be interested in?
Yeah, I mean that's basically all I can think of. I'm trying to think now. I mean, you got Boogie Cousins as a free agent this year.
Yeah, but we don't need a center to take away from Jared Allen. I mean,
that's true. Even though Allen, he could be a power forward, especially the way he's starting to shoot the ball. But no, I hear you. I mean, basically it is Kawhi, but I mean, things will open up every year in the NBA. Things happen, the players become disgruntled. Every year there are going to be some big-time free agents out there.
Yeah, we'll see. That's something to follow. Of course, it's not going to happen this year. I'm interested. We'll talk more about that in a couple of weeks when free agency comes about. I was just taking a look at the free agent. I just didn't see anybody. I mean, I said, okay, well, maybe Derek Favors returns. You know, I mean, he's a big guy because that's the only thing. When you take a look at the Nets roster right now, they've got 11 players that look like, okay, they're locks on the roster right now. 3 two-way players from last year. And then you've got the summer league guys and any potential free agents to add up some more of that roster, because I don't know what they're going to do with these 3 two-way players, the Jack Wileys, the Webbs, and the Doyles. They're going to have to battle it out just to make the team again. But really that means we only have 11 players, and Jared Allen's the only big guy we have that is a legitimate center. We talked. That's why Mo Wagner would have been so good on this team. And then you've got Carroll, Jefferson at power forward. So you really only have 3 guys that play the big for the Nets right now.
Right.
3. And that's and we talked about how DeMarre Carroll could very well be a trade candidate. He's got a couple more years left on his deal for about $30 million. But that's if the Nets are going to make one more big splash, I think it may involve Carroll or possibly Dinwiddie, because I think it's time for Whitehead to get some reps.
I agree. Yeah, definitely with the Whitehead thing. You know, he's proven all he can as far as being in the D League. We know he's talented. He's what you would call like a 5-tool player. If it applied. And you're right. And Dinwiddie's a valuable piece, and Carroll has a contract that would be easy to get rid of. So, and he's a productive player, especially for a contender. So I agree there. I think something might happen down the road.
What does he have now, Carroll? Carroll have 1 more year left on his deal, or has he got 2 more years left?
I can't remember.
Let me go check that out, because but look, that's a guy that has done a really good job as far as providing the organization with a leader, somebody that he's their veteran leader right now. He really is, but he's been there for the year, and sometimes that's. You don't really need to have a player like that around too much longer, because he's already taught you what he needs to teach you. Sure, if he's around for another half a season by the deadline or 1 more year, again, based on his contract, fact is that expiring contract, whenever it comes up, again, I have 2 years here, but I just wanted to double check it, that he then all of a sudden becomes a trade candidate. Let's just put it this way. I'm going to be surprised if he winds up here for the duration of his contract. I think he's going to get traded for that contract at some point.
Yeah, I would agree. And another guy who's probably, I think, is a free agent in, not this year but next, is a Kyrie Irving. That's a possibility.
Yeah, I was thinking of him too.
Strong,
yes.
We're strong in the guard position, but not as strong as Kyrie Irving, obviously. But so I mean, there are possibilities there. But you're right; it's not the strongest of classes compared to the previous 2.
Yeah, the only thing with Irving that I'd be a little bit worried about is his injury situation.
Right,
and by the way, Carroll only has 1 more year left now, so he's got a $15 million contract left, and then that's it. So that means that he could be traded at any time. He could be traded this offseason. He could be traded before the deadline, and that would be an expiring contract that could make things interesting. But, yeah, Irving, that's what would worry me about him, is giving him a max contract and him just not being able to stay healthy for very long over his career, because we've been dealing with enough of that stuff with D'Angelo Russell and Lynn the last couple of years.
Right. You could also bring back Carmelo Anthony back to Brooklyn if you want. You could try that.
No, we won't be doing that. This is Sean Marks.
Right.
Yeah, he's not going to do anything stupid. But
I thought I'd throw that out there.
But I mentioned Dinwiddie because he is because we have so many point guards right now between Russell and Whitehead, as I mentioned, and then of course LeVert's actually played the point. I mean, he had a career. He had what did he have? He had a pretty good number. As a matter of fact, he doubled his assists per game to like 4. which is not bad.
Right, he looks good.
Yeah, so he looks good as a guy that could be a third point guard. So you don't need to have him as the fourth point guard. So that's why I think Dinwiddie, because his contract is so good. And look, you're talking about a guy that only shot 38% and 32% from three. So I don't want everybody to get so excited about Dinwiddie, but that he's some sort of superstar. So that's why I think he's an expendable part. That with his contract, then you got the expiring contract of Carroll. I think that would make a nice little combination deal. Maybe put those two guys in a package and get something good. But maybe even get a pick for next year in the draft. And look, I don't know if the Nets are going to make the playoffs this year. We know that they'll be better just because barring injury, to get Lynn back. So if they're healthier, more experienced, they'll probably at least be in the race till the last month of the season this year. I don't think they'll make the playoffs unless there's some sort of player movement between now and the beginning of the season, which means that we'll be back in the lottery and finally, for the first time in several years, with an opportunity to get ourselves a pretty good pick. And then we have those two max contracts. So next offseason is going to be fantastic.
Right. And like you said, they're going to have the draft picks. Thank God that Boston charade is over with, and we don't have to talk about it anymore, because that's the only time Brooklyn really comes up in the conversation when you talk about Boston's first round picks. So at least we're over with that. So you're right. I mean, next year that's what they're looking for. That's what they're building for. And also you got, like you said, you got to figure that LeVert takes a huge step next year. D'Angelo Russell, they have young talent here. Jared Allen, these guys should take huge steps next year and maybe be able to get you, high 30s in wins, or something like that.
Sure.
To where you have your draft pick coming up, and then you can make all kinds of trades.
Yes.
You're gonna have expendable pieces to get rid of, and you said we have expiring contracts.
Yep.
Already on the roster. So there are a lot of things they could do. This team, the bottom line is, this team's gonna probably definitely look completely different in 2019.
Yeah, and Rondé Hollis-Jefferson had a huge year this past year, raising his field goal percentage to 47%, which was big for him. And he just was a bricklayer over his career, but he actually showed he could shoot the ball a little bit. And it was a good thing that they put him into that power forward position. They moved him into the four as something which he never could have done 10 years ago in the league. But now you can do that, and it fit him.
Right.
And with his defensive ability, that was a good spot for him. And so that's a guy that is going to be a restricted free agent next year. So he should still be a piece of the puzzle with this organization moving forward. But we'll find out. We get Jeremy Lin back for one more year. That's another guy that's going to free up cap space when he's gone after next season. And we'll find out. Hopefully he'll be healthy, because that'll just make things better. It'll also make it easier if they want to trade Dinwiddie. And as far as wins, as far as the free agents that are out there right now, Okafor, AC, Cunningham, Harris, and Stauskas. Harris is the big one. What would you do with Harris? Because Harris, he's going to get paid. The Nets would like to pay him a reasonable contract. They want him back. They've developed him. He's that outside Kyle Korver type that he's actually started to develop into. And what did he have? He had 42% from three, which is pretty good for a guy that shoots as many threes as he does. He's not as bad as a defender as people think. So what do you think? You think they bring him back? Think they find a way?
I think they want to. I think they would like to. I know Atkinson loves him, obviously. He's gotten better every year. He's turned himself into a knockdown shooter. You can't deny that. But they're not going to
break the bank,
overreach for him.
No.
Yeah, they're not going to break the bank for him. They don't need him on this team. The type of team that would need him is if he was like that final piece that's going to get you into the playoffs or something like that. They're not at that level yet. So they'll keep him as long as someone else doesn't break the bank and show them that they really want him. But he'll have a place to fall back on in Brooklyn if he wants to stay.
Yeah, I get the feeling he'll be back, because I think that other teams, look, it's not like there's a ton of teams out there with huge cap space to overspend for Joe Harris. So
Right.
I would guess, unless something happens over the next several weeks where some other team that is a championship team, like you're saying, a final piece of the puzzle, they figured out how to open up some cap room to bring Joe Harris in. Unless something like that happens, I would venture to believe that Harris will not a lot, but I think he'll settle a little bit less to stay here. I believe.
It makes sense, because partly out of loyalty and partly out of just being smart, because he knows he'll continue to get better. He knows that he was one of those players you talk about when you talk about Brooklyn has developed players. He knows better than anybody. So even for his own well-being in terms of in the NBA, he knows he's going to continue to get better with his staff. So that's a reason for him to stay. But money talks, and if another team reaches out to him with more money, that might sway him.
All right, the Nets, of course, also have Allen Crabbe at forward. And now the thing with Crabbe is that he got more playing time, but he was a 41% three-point shooter, and it dropped to 37 last season because he doubled his attempts. So that's something that's a little bit concerning. But I don't know. I mean, is it just a matter of hoping that because he started to pick things up in the second half of the season, when it finally hit him, of everything the Nets have been preaching to him since they got him, and he did have the injury in camp, which stunted his growth and development with the Nets. So we're all hoping that when the light clicked and he realized, oh, you guys want me to be fearless, and you're okay if I am and I miss, and I'll go ahead and do that. Then hopefully he'll develop even more. But that's the trick. He's got to continue to be that fearless shooter that we see in the league, because if he can do that, even if he has bad nights, that's okay. Where the Nets are right now with their roster, the talent they have, that's what they need him to do.
Right. And, his time in terms of really showing the Nets more is running out. He's not the youngest guy. He's not one of the younger guys on the roster even. And you have other guys like LeVert stepping up, and he's going to get better. I think Crabbe has basically shown us what he is, and that he's a solid player.
Sure.
But nothing.
He's not a star.
To where
he's not a star.
Yeah, he's not a star.
Yeah.
And the Nets, and we talked about the Nets need stars. They have enough guys, younger guys, who are developing, who they should keep around and wait on, than to worry about Crabbe. So I think Crabbe, he might be he's probably a trade piece down the line too.
Yeah, he could be a trade piece after next season, because he'll have 2 more years left on his $37 million owed over 2 more seasons. So,
right.
But that all depends again how he plays, because of the injury, because he did show signs of getting it in the second half of the season. After maybe being healthy, hopefully this offseason, if he does all of a sudden jump, and he shows a jump, and he goes, and all of a sudden his three-point shooting goes back to 41% with the same number of attempts, then all of a sudden maybe the Nets have got a good piece that they could work with in the future. But if he's what he was last year when it was all said and done, stats wise, then yeah, I would agree with you. Then he'll probably just be somebody that'll be here for another year or two. As far as the summer league players, talk about right now. Is there only one definite that you know about that's headed to the summer league as far as representing the Nets?
Yeah, that's what I'm hearing. I've heard other names, but the one official name I heard, an official signing, was Theo Pinson, to a 2-way deal with the Nets. He, of course, out of North Carolina, a 4-year guy out of North Carolina. He was actually a 5-star high school player coming out before that, but he never developed a jump shot. But he can do everything else: rebound, pass. Actually played a lot of point guard for UNC the last couple of years. So, he has skills, but with him, it's all about the outside shot. Whether can he ever develop that? Because if not, I really don't see a spot for him. Definitely on this, in the league period, and on this team, which is full of like combo guards.
Yeah, probably somebody. I'm sure that they look at him and they go, "Wait a second, we got a 6'6" guard that can defend." And
Right.
especially with the Nets, that's the next stage of development with some of these young players. They got to start defending better. So maybe if Pinson can have a turnaround in the next 2 years, developing in with Long Island the way Jefferson did on his shot, then maybe
Right.
that's a guy that could make the team and be a depth guard in the future. So we'll keep an eye on him. Other players that we have heard that are possibilities for the summer league are Tyler Davis from Texas A&M, Jordan McLaughlin, the point guard from USC, and Watanabe, the guard from George Washington. Now, Watanabe is a good outside shooter, A-10 Defensive Player of the Year, and McLaughlin was third nationally in assists, and a good outside shooter, but he's just 6'2". If the Nets do bring him in, I would be intrigued to see what he looks like. I'm willing to get a guy in the summer league that at least has got a good outside shot, knows how to dish the ball, and the one issue is his height, because at least maybe he could overcome the height. We've seen that before.
Right, and that's what summer league is for. You get guys, don't seem quite ready for the league at that moment, and you never know, they might surprise you. And they all have the talent. They've all accomplished things, at the big time Division I level. So it's possible, and that's why you bring these guys in. Let's see, and with the Nets development, they will probably get better in that short time, and hopefully, you find that in the rough.
All right. And by the way, let's also remind everybody we've got that Vesnikov kid that is in Europe. He was, our second-round draft pick last year?
Yep.
That the kid from Bulgaria. And so I tried to look and find out about some of his stuff before we went on the air, but I wasn't able to find anything. I'm sure we'll at some point get some information on how he did last season. But that's one of those 6'9", with size, big guy that can shoot, stretch four. That is somebody that should probably be playing at Barcelona for one more season. So a player to watch. That is property of the Nets, so we figured we'd just throw him in there as well. But we'll talk more about all these guys when we talk free agency in a couple of weeks. And how does the NBA free agency go before we end this thing?
July 1st.
When do we know? Do we know, because with the NFL this past year, it was crazy. We knew all the big deals 48 hours before the actual free agency day. Is that like that in the NBA, or is it a little bit different?
It's usually like that. I think, a couple of days before the first things start leaking and deals are agreed upon, but they don't become official until the first. So yeah, I would definitely look at the end, the end of next week, really, to see, what moves are being made.
All right, sounds good, Jamal. Good to talk Nets basketball once again. Get it off our chest. And give our input on this franchise that is gaining a little bit of momentum, slowly but surely. And next off season, though, is going to be pretty huge, and I'm looking forward to it. So, Jamal, we'll talk again in a few weeks, and we never know what we're going to talk about when there's movement with the NBA, and especially with this organization, thanks to Sean Marks. So maybe he's got something else under his sleeves.
Yeah, you never know. I wouldn't doubt it. They'll be active, that's for sure.
All right, thanks, Jamal. We'll talk to you in a few weeks.
All right, sounds good.
All right, that's Jamal Murphy taking a Saturday off to talk to us. At least an hour and a half maybe. Still, it's a Saturday. Again, we're going to promote this on Monday, but it's available. It'll be available on our YouTube page, on our iTunes page, under Prime Sports Network. It'll be available and posted up on our website, but we won't send it out on social media via Twitter until Monday. And you can follow us on Twitter at PrimeSN. So we will definitely talk more Nets basketball and also a little bit about the NBA, too. So we'll talk some NBA free agency. We'll talk about the big deals, and then we'll talk the Nets. We'll do that on our next edition of Nets Gain here on the Prime Sports Radio Network. So for Jamal Murphy, and by the way, regarding Jamal, don't forget you can check him out on the Bill Rhoden On Sports podcast on iTunes, and also for his work as a writer for CBS Local in New York. That'll wrap it up. Nets game, Prime Sports Network. Jamal Murphy, I'm Greg DePalma. We'll see you next time.